Hey, what's going on YouTube? A few weeks ago, I lost everything in my Homelab. Every virtual machine, every configuration, every bit of my automation. Now, instead of just giving up, I'm going to go ahead and use this as a chance to rebuild and make it even better. So in this video, we're going to go ahead and using Proxmox, we're going to go ahead and use Terraform to stand up our first VM. And then from there, in future videos, we're going to cover the full process for standing up a full Kubernetes deployment to host all of your applications and services. So with that being said, let's get right into the video. All right, so for the first step, we're going to go head over to Terraform. Now, what we need is one of these packages here. Depending on what operating system you are using will determine the next steps. In my case, I'm going to go ahead and install the binary on my Windows machine. All right, so once you have that downloaded binary, go ahead and extract it and then place it in a folder of your choosing. In my case, I created a Terraform folder inside of program files. So in here, you will see the binary. Next, you want to run, well, there's a few ways to get there, but in this case, if you run sysdm.cpl, you could go ahead and bring up this control panel here, system properties, and then you're going to go to the advanced tab and then head over to the environment variables tab. And then once you find the path, click on the edit and you will get another dialog. And in this one, you're going to go ahead and click on new, and then you're going to add or specify the folder where you have that binary. Next, just go ahead and open up a new command prompt or PowerShell session terminal and go ahead and run terraform-version. And that will verify that you are now referencing the Terraform binary that we had just set up in our environment variables. Next, head over to your Proxmox, and then we're going to go ahead and create a new user. So first, we're going to go to Data Center, Permissions, Users. And then we're going to click on Add. And we're going to create a new user. In this case, I'm just going to set up a test user for this video. And then we're going to go ahead and just leave everything blank. And we're going to make sure that the Enable checkbox is selected. And then click on Add. Next, we're going to create an API token. Here, we're going to click API tokens, click on Add. And then we're going to specify the user, so test user, and then we'll just say test user API, and then we're going to click on add. Grab that secret value and this token ID because we are going to reference that later on. Next, we're going to add permissions to that token. So click on permissions, click on add, and then click on API token permission. And then we're going to select the path. In this case, we'll just do the root path. We're going to select the test user token that we had just created, and then we're going to select the role. In this case, we will select PVE admin and then click add. And then what I like to do is just go ahead and test your permissions and then perform a API call. In this case, we're going to use curl. So we're going to say curl-k-h, and we're going to pass through these headers. In this case, this is going to be the name of that token that we had just created. And then we're going to specify the secret after that. And then we're going to use the IP address of the Proxmox followed by the port and the endpoint. So in this case, we should see a response, and this is saying that it is a success. As you can see, the status is online. Next, we want to just go ahead and go back into our permissions. And then we're going to select add user permission, select the root, select test user, and then here's where we're going to do PV admin and click on add. Next, we are going to create a VM and then convert that VM into a template. And to do so, we're going to go ahead and grab a cloud image from Ubuntu. So if you head over to the releases page and then you look for the cloud image, AMD64.image, this may vary depending on what you are using, but in this case, this will work for my environment. So we're going to go ahead and just grab that address and copy link address, and then we're going to bring it over into our session. We're going to go to our node and we're going to click on shell, and then inside of the root directory, we're just going to go ahead and run a wget, and we will paste that address, and we will let that go on. Now while that's going, we're going to create a blank VM. So go ahead and click on create VM. The node is PVE, the VM ID, we will change this to 105, and the name is just going to be test CyberMe. Operating system, we're not going to use any media. The system is we're just going to select the agent box. Disks, we're going to go ahead and delete that disk. CPU, we can leave it at 1 for Ubuntu, and then 2 gigs of RAM is just fine for this video, and then we can leave this as well. Click on next and then click on finish. All right, so now we have our blank VM. Once that file has downloaded into our home directory. All right, so we're going to use QM, import disk, the VM ID. In my case, we specified 105. We're going to click on the image or select the image, and then we're going to select local LVM, and that should go ahead and transfer to the VM. It will always get stuck here at the 100%. It will show it twice, and then once it's completed, you will see success. Now if we go back into our Proxmox, you will see that we now have an unused disk. Let's go ahead and we're going to edit that and then click on add, and you will now see we have a hard disk. All right, and then simply we want to go into add under that VM, and we're going to just add a cloud init drive. We're going to specify the local LVM, click on add, and then inside of here we could go ahead and make some changes. So in this case, just for testing purposes, we will just create test, and we will leave the rest blank. So now at least we could log into this VM once we spin it up. All right, before we are able to boot up, we're going to go ahead and specify the boot, where to boot from. So in this case, QM set VMID -boot C, and then we're going to specify that boot disk. All right, so all you got to do now is just click on the VM and then click on start, and then if you click on the console, it will start to boot up. All right, so after a minute or two, we are now brought to the login screen, and as you can see, using the credentials that we had set up in the cloud init, we now can get into our Ubuntu VM. So next we are going to power this down, and we are simply going to just convert this into a template, and that's going to allow us to use this inside our Terraform. Once it is shut down, you go ahead and right click on that VM, and then simply click on convert to template. Click on yes, and now the 105 VMID test-cyberme is set to be a template. All right, so now I am in my VS Code or Visual Studio Code, and I have a Git repository that I am going to be building out. And in this case, I just created a new branch test-cyberme. So any changes that I make on this branch won't affect the one that I already have running. So in this case, I'm just going to go quickly through these files, and I could have them in the description below, so you go ahead and modify it and use it in your lab. So one of the most important files here are going to be the main, and this is going to specify obviously the different resources that we want to spin up. In this case, we want to spin up a VM, and it's going to pull in some of the variables that we're going to talk about in a minute. We got CPU, we got memory, the boot disk, network, and then the cloud init. Go down to outputs. This is going to be the result of the when we do Terraform apply. Providers. This is going to be important as you need to modify this depending on the provider that you are using. In this case, this is what I went with, and I was able to specify the token ID and the token secret that we talked about earlier, and this is the endpoint that we also tested out earlier when we did that curl. And then lastly, you just need to specify some of those variables inside of the variables.tf. You can leave it by default, or if you want to change any of the variables, you can do that as well. Make sure that this one definitely needs to be modified depending on what you use for the name. The old one that I used when I first did some testing was Ubuntu template. So in this case, for this video, we're going to change that to test-cyberme-1, and we are going to run Terraform plan, and this will give us an idea of what we are going to spin up without actually doing anything. Pretty straightforward. Go ahead and you can read it. But for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to go ahead and run Terraform apply, and that will go ahead and deploy this resource to our Proxmox. In this case, it is saying that Ubuntu template was not found, so let me go ahead and fix that. So I just had to save that file, and now we'll go ahead and let it run through its course. All right, so it looks like the apply is now complete, and we now have one resource that has been added. And then here's the outputs that we had to find. So if we went back into outputs, as you can see, we asked for the VM ID and the VM name, and here we go here, and the VM ID is here. So now if we open up Proxmox, you will see that we now have a running VM, Terraform Ubuntu 01. And then if we open up a console, and you can see it's booting up, we will just verify that we could test our log in using those test credentials that we had set up earlier. All right, and as you can see, using Terraform, using that template, we were able to log in successfully. All right, and that's going to close out today's video. So in this video, again, I talked about how I lost my Homelab and pretty much lost everything as far as all of my resources, services, and applications that were deployed. Wasn't much, but it was enough to get me in the mindset that I need to do it right from the very beginning. And I also was looking anyway to get to deploy a Kubernetes environment, not only because of it's something that would benefit the Homelab, but it's also something I want to learn more about and have more experience in. So this was the direction I was going to go anyway. But now I'm just trying to make sure I do it right, and I want to use as much infrastructure as code and as much GitOps and stuff like that going forward, along with backups, as that's going to be huge, and documentation. So that's definitely what we're going to be doing going forward when it comes to the Homelab, as we're going to start spinning this all up together. But in this video, we covered the installation of Terraform. We covered how to set up a VM and a VM template within Proxmox, and then we used Terraform to deploy that VM and within Proxmox using the user and the API token that we had generated earlier in the video. I hope you were able to take something away, and as always, never stop learning.